Hello there! Welcome back to Ketamine Connections. I'm so thrilled to have you here for another episode of the show, and especially this week. I introduced last week that we are going to start seeing more interviews on this show. I am so excited to highlight ketamine transformation stories, people who work in the field, and today we have a very special guest who is both. T Veiga is a ketamine nurse who, on today's episode, shares their own personal transformation story with us, the one that inspired them to become a ketamine nurse. How cool. Before we get into the episode, I want to introduce some themes that could guide your listening if I had the power to do so. So first of all, T's journey to even getting to the point of trying ketamine is so relatable. They were dealing with all kinds of chronic health issues, taking 43 pills and supplements a day. Whoa. Feeling completely stuck and hopeless. T had tried everything, traditional medications, acupuncture, cryogenic chambers, you name it. Nothing seemed to be providing the healing, the long-lasting relief that T was looking for. And when T's dad first suggested that T try ketamine, they were completely closed off to the idea. This was like a sketchy drug that some dude created in a lab that was going to make them hallucinate. Yeah, no thank you. There was no way that T was going down that path. And so they continued with other therapies. And those therapies would come in handy later when T would draw on those for the integration phase of the ketamine journey. And as it so happened, the topic of ketamine just kept coming back around and around until it came back at the exact right time. And guess what? Spoiler alert. T went for it. When it came back around at the perfect time, T went from skeptic to curious and got on the ketamine wagon. And wow, you'll hear all about that. And you'll also hear about how it was after the second ketamine session that something truly magical happened. And this is the part that I want you to listen to extra carefully, if you're open to it. This is the part where T was going through a breakup. And in that moment, T had this profound realization, right? They could either sit and wallow in despair as they had previously done, or they could get up, take a new path, make a different choice, and do something to take care of themselves. T chose the second, new, shakier path. And maybe this was a small shift, but if you listen to how that one decision with the help of ketamine really helped to change behaviors and open up new pathways, that is something that I want you to pay attention to, because that is what's possible. You change the trajectory with one decision, then another decision, and another decision. If you take off on a boat or a plane and you change the trajectory of that direction by 1 or 2 degrees, guess what? In time, you're going to end up at a totally different destination. Here are the takeaways that I really want you to listen for in this episode. And that is something, the first one is something that I say all the time to clients. Ketamine will not change your life, but what it will do is that it will make the changes that you can make to change your life more accessible and more possible. And that's what I want you to listen to in that moment that T made a different decision. And the other thing that I want you to listen to is the importance of integration and other tools like support systems, community, energy work, mindfulness, meditation, journaling, whatever it might be for you. You'll hear plenty more about integration on the show in the coming episodes. And just know that is where the special sauce is. And yeah. So in a moment, I'm going to read T's bio, and I want you to listen to this bio through the lens of, okay, this is who this person is now. And then in the episode, in the beginning of the episode, you'll hear who T was before. And the transformation here it's palpable, it's thick, it's freaking awesome. I'm so cheering T on, and let's get into it. Okay, so T Veiga, also known as the Queer Ketamine Nurse, is a trailblazing, non-binary, lesbian, registered nurse, speaker, published author, ordained minister, boat captain, group facilitator, poet, and global traveler. T's personal transformative experiences with ketamine-assisted psychotherapy have inspired their mission to build bridges centering around awareness, access, and support for the LGBTQ plus clients with complex mental health conditions, showcasing how ketamine-assisted psychotherapy can uniquely address the challenges faced by this marginalized community. T is committed to fostering connections between the queer community and the ketamine community, aiming to create inclusive, heart-centered spaces where every person can safely thrive as their most authentic, self-actualized, joy-filled self. Wow. I had the best time recording this interview with T. They shared vulnerably, honestly, and their journey is truly inspiring. So I cannot wait for you to hear it. Let's dive in. Hey there, and welcome to Ketamine Connections. I'm so excited you're here. Maybe you have heard about the incredible healing power of ketamine on a podcast, in a tweet, or even from your cousin's friend who's tried it. Whether you're thinking about this innovative approach for yourself, a loved one, or just curious to learn more about its transformative potential, you probably have a lot of questions. This show is all about exploring that potential by diving into topics like the subconscious mind, sharing amazing client transformation stories, and answering the most common questions I've received while helping hundreds of clients explore and transform their subconscious minds. Just like any good psychedelic journey, our episodes are designed to open your mind, spark your curiosity, and expand your understanding of what's possible. I'm your host, Anna Kristal, aka your ketamine coach, and I'm thrilled to dive in and get curious with you. Let's get started. All of this lead in to actually record and hit record for the past 30 minutes of trying to make tech work, I don't actually have an introduction. So we are actually live time releasing perfectionism. Here's what I want to say about T, who's on the show today, is that we have a lot of shared interests that we want to bring to this platform. The main one that I'm thinking of is that T, you work as a ketamine nurse, and so there is the added benefit of you being the observer of so many client transformation stories, and I want to absolutely invite you back to tell that story. And the story that we're working with today is the story of you having your own transformation with ketamine.
Yes, thank you, Anna, so much for having me on this podcast. I'm super grateful for the platform to get to be able to not only share my experiences professionally, but also personally, right? I think there's a lot of different dimensions that ketamine has influenced my life, and for starters, I think it's great to get to that personal, right? Who are you? What are you about? What have you been through? And why, I recommend it to so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so my intention is to have every transformation story start with the same thing, which I sent you beforehand, which is if you could give the you before ketamine one piece of advice, what would it be?
The me before ketamine, there's a lot of advice I would like to give that version of myself in that place and time, but I think that the most simple, kind of straightforward piece of advice I would say is to take it step by step, little by little. In Spanish we say poco a poco, right? It just means, okay, trusting that there will be little hints, clues along your journey, along your way. Listen to that, seek it out, pay attention, have that awareness that you will be guided bit by bit, little by little, even if you have no idea what's on the horizon, right? What's later down the road, just what's in front of you, you do have that help, you are on the right path, just keep going with it.
I love it. Poco a poco. Okay, so since we're back in time, I have a few questions to help guide where it all began, right? I love hearing from people how they heard about ketamine. So I'm curious, when and how or who did you hear ketamine from? What were your initial thoughts? did you feel excited or apprehensive to try it? Like, thinking back to you when you were still making the decision.
So my first interaction with ketamine, it's interesting. I have vague memories of this. It was a very clouded period of time in my life. I was in college for nursing school. Well, this was before nursing school. I was doing prerequisites and a psychology minor. And I was at the point with these other mental health and physical health complications I had where I was taking 43 pills and supplements a day and not seeing any progress, right? I'd tried a bunch of different therapies, kept getting this like false hope, oh, this will be it, this will be the thing, right? And my dad had actually done some research on ketamine and proposed it to me as an option for, okay, there are these different things, let's keep trying, right? Keep trying, keep exploring, keep experimenting. And at that time, I was scared. I was apprehensive. I didn't understand the medicine at all. Like, it was my thoughts of, oh, okay, so this is some drug that I have to get, intravenously or intramuscularly, that's like some guy created in a lab, and it's somehow gonna make me hallucinate and feel better? Like, what? No, that's terrifying. That sounds sketchy. Like, I'm definitely not going down that route. So I said no to that at that time. I instead explored frequency medicine with pulsed electromagnetic frequency devices, which seemed to help for a few years, helped with different symptoms and underlying pathological conditions, right? Clearing out some viruses, bacteria, heavy metals, and molds. I definitely think that played a key factor in my healing journey. But then I reached a point a few years down the line where again I felt stagnated, very lost after graduating nursing school, no idea what to do, where to live. Just this feeling that there wasn't a place for me in this realm, in this reality of capitalism and my health conditions, right? And I just so happened to be living in Lake Tahoe at the time, and made some new friends in the queer community who brought ketamine up to me again. And the way that they introduced it to me, they said, oh, this actually has roots in, as a sacred plant medicine. It has roots in ritual and ceremony. It's found in nature. It's a natural substance. And it works on the spiritual side, the, hallucinations, and the physical scientific side, to be very effective, very efficient, and to work not only with mental health but also chronic pain disorders. And I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to give it a go. It still scares me. I'm still uncertain, but there was something in it that I guess ignited that curiosity within me. And I said, let's try it. It came back around. That's got to mean something. Let's go for it this time.
I love this story because I think from the people that I've been working with for, 3 years now with ketamine, so many stories, kind of the tipping point of I was like, oh, you're telling me about what therapy and you do what with it and it goes where and I go where and there what happens, and people going from that to okay, just strap me in the chair, let's go, is that there is a path to that place that feels okay, well, I've tried all these other crazy things, let me try another crazy thing. There's it is an end of the line type of therapy where people are all right, well, great, I've tried everything else, I'm committed to feeling better, let me try this weird thing.
That is a very relatable statement. It had been, so really for me, since age 9 or 10, trying not only different medications, right, but acupuncture, cold laser therapies, cryogenic hyperbaric oxygen chambers, right? You're like in this vessel, and like just the weirdest, strangest stuff to try and see some shifts, to try and see some healing, to get some hope, and to get to just that ability, like, to function. I've always had that desire to not only be able to function, but to also help others, to give back, right? That deep feeling of why do we suffer? Why are we put through just this torture? It felt like for so long. If not to give back to others, if not to, throw a life ring into others who are drowning and struggling, and say, hey, this is what I found. This is something that helped. Maybe it'll help you too. Like, I can't 100% guarantee it's going to work for everybody, but I know it changed my life. I know what the statistics look like. There's a pretty good chance it could work for you. Give it a go. Give it your best shot. If that's not the thing, here's another tool I've learned along my ways, right? To be able to have these different tools in our tool belt, not only for ourselves, but also for people we meet along the way who resonate with our journey, who we feel this calling to try and help out.
That's so beautiful. It reminds me of Ram Dass, who said, we're all just walking each other home.
That's sweet. That's cool.
Yeah. But it's actually a really great segue to, you mentioned a little bit about what your life was like before ketamine, with all the supplements you were taking, all the things you had tried, both traditional and more, Eastern, more holistic, things like that. So, being at that time in your life where there was like a helplessness of like having tried so many things and all of that, and still like getting over that and again and again. So we have a pretty good idea of what life was like before ketamine. I'm curious, how did you know when the ketamine was starting to like work, or you were starting to feel better? What were some of the changes that you observed in yourself?
Yes, so the first change that I noticed, it was shortly after my second treatment, and at that time, the place where I received these treatments, they had an agreement you had to sign that said, I will commit to doing 2 sessions a week for 2 weeks. And from there, we'll kind of play it by ear. We might need a session once every 4 to 6 weeks. That was their recommendation. So starting out, the first session, I did not notice much, but again, they were like, okay, the first 2 sessions, we're going to kind of increase the dosage, like bit by bit. We're going to try and find this therapeutic range for you where you're seeing the benefits of the medication. It's working in your body. Like, this is the sweet spot, right? And so it was really after that second infusion, I actually experienced a breakup. Well, we weren't technically together, right? It was one of those situationships. But I was very, like, codependent in that relationship, which has been a theme in my life as a part of my health conditions. And instead of, like, so this is where the ketamine came in, where I saw, I was like, okay, I had this choice. I was like, all right, I just was broken up with the day before, and I was like, okay, I can either sit here today and wallow and ruminate and potentially self-harm in one form or another, right? There's a lot of different ways that we cause harm to ourselves, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. It's like, all of that is one option. Or I can take a new path, do something different. I can actually go and, like, get some of these, like, I needed to get, like, a blood draw. And it was like, am I going to get this done today? Am I going to do this thing? Or am I going to wallow? And it was like, this is the thing, like, this is for me, and this is for my health, and this is to get, better information, better clarity, better understanding, moving things forward for the betterment of myself. And I said, let's do that. Let's do that thing. I hopped on a bus, which broke down in the snow. Well, and I ended up walking through the snow like 3 miles to go get this lab draw. And then right afterwards, I went to the place where I was getting some psychological services done, to actually get help and to tell my therapist, hey, I just went through this breakup. I'm feeling awful. I need some support, right? So that was huge, and I think that really points to something that is so powerful with this medicine, is how ketamine is working to actually change behaviors, right? To show you, okay, wait, there's a new neuronal connection. There's a whole new path that just opened up, and now I have that ability to compare A or B and to make an empowered choice in a new direction that I'd never done before. So that was the biggest indicator. Wow, okay, something's different. Something's happening. I actually want to do things for the betterment of myself. I want to become my best self. I want to take care of myself. I want to, I got this rush of motivation. It was amazing. It was fantastic.
I love this story so much. I am celebrating past T, who's just not today. Get your butt off the couch. We're trudging through the snow for 3 miles to ask for help. That's incredible. I'm curious because you said something about you had a choice, right? You realized in that breakup, whatever, the rupture of that relationship, regardless of what the relationship was, you realized I have a choice. I could sit and wallow, or I could go do something else. Is that where the ketamine, do you feel like that choice, the revelation, because there's always choice, but do you feel like you saw the choice in a different way because of ketamine?
I feel that it was more along the lines of, because I'm a very analytical, self-aware person. So for a long time, I think that with my mental health, I have been able to see choices and to see patterns and very well. But that with my illness, I've much more easily fallen into those patterns. I'll be oh, okay, I'm going to just keep choosing that same previous, maybe a lower vibration or, a less helpful pattern, just out of habit or out of self-sabotage or fatigue, whatever the underlying cause may be, or just call it, okay, that's a depression choice. The depression took the reins and we know this route, we're going to keep going down this road. Where I think the ketamine came in, at least for me personally, it was this new experience, this new feeling of oh no, I actually want to take care of myself. I deserve to take care of myself, and I want to take care of myself. And this is a small thing that I can do that is going to be improving myself. And at that same time, I had been deliberating for quite a while about whether to go through with taking my nursing licensing exam. There was sort of this time window before the exam switched to a completely different format, which I had not been preparing for, right? My whole nursing school experience had been tailored to this one route, this one way of taking the test, and it was now or never. So that was another dimension in which the ketamine came in, and it brought me this clarity. It was no, yeah, you got to do this, T. You went through all this work. Now is the time. Don't run away from this. Don't shy away from this. This person has been removed from your life as she was a distraction, and there were a lot of other, distractions, coping mechanisms, family dramas, right? All these other variables that I was granted this opportunity living alone in Tahoe in the winter to focus in, to study, to experience ketamine in collaboration with my divine purpose. It was very magical. It was awesome.
I also, I love this story even more now because I heard it in a different way. Because in the beginning, right, what is the piece of advice you would offer T before ketamine is poco a poco, and also like poco, like something little, right? Like you were like, I'm making one little choice, and it just spiraled into you becoming a different version of yourself, right? It's like that first step started a trail, a path that you are still walking, of like choosing yourself, choosing your purpose, choosing the higher vibration rather than the lower vibration. And I think so many people come to ketamine and are looking for a total life overhauls, right? Of like, and people ask me all the time, like, should I quit my job? Should I leave my relationship? And I'm like, okay, let's just like get through the ketamine and then we can talk. But it's like, people are looking for a big life overhaul, but it happens in those little moments. It happens in the little things that you're like, my focus is going this way. I'm going to shift and go this way. What's over here? And then it turns into a whole new existence.
That's a beautiful way to say it, and it's something I do think that a lot of folks in the psychedelic realm, like, there's kind of this, like, weighted, like, almost expectation, like a grandiose expectation, right? That, oh, you know, I took psychedelics once, and I met God, and, you know, she told me to quit my job, break up with my abusive boyfriend, you know, XYZ. And it's like, okay, I mean, I guess, like, that can happen to some people, but it's not what we should be seeking from the medicine. I do believe that at least ketamine, it tends to work it's very gentle, it's very loving, and it's a little detached. It has this sort of, like, universal, like, hey, let's step back from this, let's look at this from a bigger picture, from your higher self, from a spiritual realm, and it tends to simplify things down. And so that's where that little, okay, there might be, in a certain session, you get a clue about one aspect of your life. In the next session, you might get another clue or insight into some other things. So I definitely encourage people to have that intentionality in that preparation, right? You know, maybe if you want to ask it a question about a relationship or about a career decision, right? But to take time with that in preparation, in the medicine and in integration, chat with your therapist about it, and see what is wisest, little by little. Because I do think ketamine tends to collaborate with your intuition and with your spirit guides, ancestors, and kind of the universe in general. So there's a lot of layers to weed through, and I think that's so important, the work that you're doing with therapy, with integration work, hypnotherapy, like those modalities, EMDR, right? There's a lot of different ways to help clarify and facilitate the information that comes through ketamine.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is in the integration. You know, I tell this part of my story is that I had my last drink of alcohol preparing for a psychedelic ceremony, and it was in that ceremony that I got the nudge. It was an intuitive hit like you had of like, okay, go do this thing instead of this other thing. And it was this intuitive hit to stop drinking alcohol for 90 days. And that spiraled into me now celebrating 6 years of not drinking alcohol, which used to be a big part of my identity. Thank you. And you can go to any medicine, you can go to any altered state of consciousness, and you get this message. What are you going to actually do with it? Are you actually going to integrate it? And if the message is, and it was for me, I left my corporate job 6 months after meeting psychedelics, and it was very intentional, and it was very, it was set up in a way where I was not avoiding something. Sometimes our jobs, our relationships are in avoidance of something, and if medicine comes in and says, oh, hey, stop avoiding, well, great, you get the avoidance tactic out of the way, and then you're just standing there face to face with whatever you were avoiding. And if you're not skilled at navigating that, or working with someone who's skilled at navigating that, it can be very destabilizing.
Oh, that is expertly said. Expertly said.
Thank you.
Right. So having those support mechanisms, not only with a therapist, but also family, friends, to have somebody who can give you rides there and back, to have somebody who could sit with you, right, hold your hand, write down, what are the words that come up. What are some of the body movements, right? I think it's very important to have those layers of support, for sure.
I 100% agree. And when I look back at my integration journey, I think one of the reasons, I started my psychedelic journey before these conversations were so mainstream, and I was lucky that I had at that point, I think like 15 years of yoga under my belt, meditating for I think 5 or 6 years. I had all of these tools to use, and I'm curious in your journey, like, what are some of the tools that were helping you when you were like, what did I just see? What did I just experience? You mentioned talking to a friend or a therapist, but what else helped you in that time in the transformation?
I have a couple tools that helped. I would say first, I had touched on earlier, pulsed electromagnetic frequencies. There are some really cool devices out there. I don't know if I'm allowed to name them. I can drop that resource in here.
Yeah, let's name them, and we'll link them in the show notes too. If they're working, let's get it out there for people.
Yeah. Heck yeah, I love it. I love it. So the two biggest ones, first one is called Healy, Healy. The second one is called Amp Coil. The Amp Coil is the bigger one. It's more heavy duty in terms of getting rid of the pathogens and things that I mentioned as were a part of my story a couple years prior, clearing out that load. Whereas the Healy, it's small, it's a smaller little device. They even have a watch now. You can wear it around. Both of these programs, both of these devices, they have programs where you can actually analyze your frequency, your energy, your energetic footprint, and it can read back information. It's called a process called biofeedback. It can tell you where are these different imbalances in your organs, glands, and tissues, in your nutrients, in your auras. It's wild. It's some really cool stuff. And from there, you're able to program certain different frequencies to help reharmonize and rebalance those things that are out of whack. So that, I think, is the biggest tool for me that has helped me feel a lot more empowered about managing different symptoms that can come up. Additionally, mindfulness walks, going for a walk at an easy tempo, looking around the environment, saying thank you to the elements, right? To the earth, to the water, to the mountains, wherever you are, just saying thank you for the nature, for the animals, for the directions, for your ancestors, for yourself, give yourself a little love too, for your physical body, for your higher self, for the ketamine, right? Just throwing in gratitude for as many things as you can think of. But as you're walking, you're just kind of taking it all in, all right, today's going to be a good day, right? That was very helpful. And then my third tool that I would touch on, I guess I'll give 4 tools. So third tool to touch on, emotional freedom technique, aka tapping. Super cool stuff. Basically, so there's an app, it's called Tapping Solutions. Free app. It walks you through a meditation where you take your hands, your couple fingers, and you tap repeatedly like this on different meridian points as it's speaking this meditation, and kind of guiding your thoughts through different emotions that come up as you're tapping. And it's amazing how connecting it is with the mind, body, spirit, what things can come up, what things can be released, and how how much lighter you can feel emotionally, energetically, spiritually afterwards. So that's number 3. And then number 4, this one is kind of strange, but it is just doing nothing. Like literally laying in bed and staring at a wall. Okay? And seeing what comes up for you. It's almost like in that post-integration work specifically, right? Like in those first 48 hours after a session, just sitting with yourself and with nothing, no stimulus, no obligations, no, background music or a background TV show, just silence, just you and your thoughts, and getting information that comes through, insights, little thoughts, it just, it's something that we just don't do on a regular basis in our hyper-connected society. It's so fast-paced. It's such a privilege to get to have so many things on our fingertips that we can connect with and be involved with. But that is my last little piece of advice, a little tip or tool for T, is just, sit with yourself and nothing and see what comes up.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I first started meditating, it would feel like every time I would sit down and do nothing, which is essentially meditate. I mean, there's so many different forms of meditation, but sort of a reductionist view of just sit down and close your eyes and observe what happens. And I remember in the beginning, it would feel like I was sitting down with an old friend that I hadn't seen in 20 years, and it was like, let me tell you everything that has been going on. It just comes out. And yeah, it's important to know what program is running underneath the surface, to know where are your thoughts when they're left unaccompanied.
Yes, and you might be surprised, I think a lot of folks with mental health conditions struggle with building that relationship with self, right? That it can be really scary to just sit with yourself and with thoughts that come up. But I do feel that the ketamine, it seems to, at least in my understanding, be reinforcing your higher self coming through, right? And so if you're meeting it with curiosity and compassion and gratitude, you'll be well, I can't make a promise, but you might be, right? You might be pleasantly surprised. Just try it out, just check it out. And if you start going down some rabbit holes, you're not in a good headspace, you're not able to be there, that's absolutely understandable. Give yourself compassion still. Maybe try again a little later when you've had a little more experience with the medicine, and reach out to your support systems. I actually just learned of a really cool resource. I think it's just here in Nevada. It's called a warm line. I don't know if other states have it, but it's this idea that, okay, if you're not quite in a crisis state, but you're kind of on the edge, you're almost there. You're struggling and you're feeling like it might get to crisis. Warm line, either text or call to reach out for support. So that's something new I learned this week that I would like to share as another resource for folks.
I love that. A warm line. Yes, and everything that you're saying, right? It's if someone is unskilled or unpracticed, you've never sat down with your thoughts ever, and you're just, they're running the show, obviously. It's great, start with 2 minutes. Set a timer of I'm going to do this for 90 seconds and just see what happens. And then, there is an art and there is a practice and there is a science, literally, of how to work with your thoughts and how to work with your inner dialogue and how to work with your self-talk as well. And if it's, if it's running the show in a way that doesn't feel supportive and kind, absolutely seek help. Absolutely find someone that knows how to navigate the subconscious space in a way that's hey, this is just part of the conversation. There's a lot of, different ways of looking at something. Let's look at a different way.
Amen. I think that analogy of a cube, right? Rubik's cube, or just a regular old box. We get so fixated and so stuck at just looking at one side. It's like, this is the one side, this is the one track, this is the one dimension. And where psychedelics come in, they show you, oh no, this cube has all these angles, and there's boxes within boxes, and they all have like different dimensions and timelines and intersections, right? It's fascinating. I find it quite intriguing from that scientific standpoint as well as that spiritual standpoint, and that's something I definitely want to hit home on our time together today. Is like, ketamine is this bridge between science and spirituality that I have a lot of hope for it to be continued to move forward in our society, because it has such amazing scientific backing. The stats are all there. And then it also holds some really beautiful, deep spiritual meaning for people, for assisting human consciousness to grow and evolve into the next chapter, which is just it's such an important time for that. So I'm very, very grateful to be connecting with you on this platform and to be moving this ball along in that direction, right? Poco a poco, little by little. Each conversation that we have like this, each person that we meet, that we share this with, whoever this comes into contact with, it's another little thread in the tapestry of history. I really believe it's a very important time in history. So I'm grateful to have met you and to be connecting here today. Yeah.
Me too. And I think what I would love, that is just like the best way to wrap things up. And I'm curious, the closing question, the golden nugget of advice that you would offer someone who's listening to this and is still like, I don't know.
I might need a quick minute to think about that one.
Actually, I think I'm going to scrap that question, because it feels like I'm like guiding people to just be like, you should do it. And I don't actually want to put that message out. So I actually don't like that question, because we even talked about when you weren't ready to try it. Like, my answer to that question is like, then don't do it. If you're not like a full yes, don't do it. So let's end on a different question. We'll cut all of that out, obviously. Okay. So, let's end on this question. What is your overall outlook on life now, being on this journey?
My overall outlook on life now, I am very committed to co-creating with the universe my best life ever. I definitely believe in past lives, and I feel as if this life I was given the opportunity and given the awareness to not only like try and heal as much as I can for myself, but to help others along, right? That commitment to like a global mission and purpose, and then to enjoy life to its fullest. In those times, I sat with ketamine, or after the medicine had worked its way out, and I was just staring at a wall, right? Thoughts about, okay, what life do I want to live? What's like my crazy big dream and vision? How do I combine passion and purpose? And for me, I want to live nomadically. I want to own a houseboat and travel around the world, ideally working virtually, doing speaking events, combining my nursing experience on land and on sea. I don't know exactly how the nursing is going to come into it quite yet. You maybe get a virtual nursing job. But just that combination, right, of living a life that is eco-friendly, minimalistic, helping others, healing myself. That's the best life yet, and it is possible, and I'm taking it little by little, step by step. So keep an eye out. If you follow me on social media, in a few years, you'll see the Queer Ketamine will be on sea.
I love it. I love the Queer Ketamine Nurse out at sea. Okay, and then we will leave all of the ways to find you and all of that in the show notes. And really quickly, I want you to be able to talk about your book, because I know that is something that you've created to help people navigate the ketamine space. So I want you to just share a little bit about that so that people know what they're clicking on below.
Yeah, thank you. My book, I am super excited about it. I did release the first volume last year. I'm currently working on a second volume, trying to get it to Amazon, because it seems like, okay, this is just the easiest platform for people to access. So my book, yeah, I mean, that's the goal of the book, right, is to increase education, to increase awareness, access to the medicine. There are a lot of, I have information, kind of beginner questions getting answered. I also have charts on, okay, kind of what's the process? How do I get started? How do I make a decision of which route I might prefer to experience? How do I set up a support system? And what are some green flags, red flags for initiating that? And some notes sections, things you can chat with your provider about, areas where you can have a sitter, someone who's with you during the medicine session to write down, like, some words you might say or some movements you might make, or laughter, right? I've seen that with some clients before. And you go, oh, what was that laughter? Like, if someone writes it down, it can help to cue the person in the medicine experience to remember a little, like, oh yeah, that was due to this, and this connects back to that, and this, like, to get a bigger picture, because sometimes in the medicine, like, you don't remember all the little things that come up. So yeah, basically just created this resource to be easy to read, colorful, short, it's simplified ketamine handbook, to get people started on their journeys, to have a bit more support, and to be aware of, what are some national resources, what are some local resources, support systems. And I will throw in there too, I brought in some angles of, like, what's the importance of recognizing indigenous roots of this medicine, and what's the importance of connecting queer clients to this medicine, and a little bit about my story too, right? So it's just all things queer ketamine.
I love it. All right, we will have that link down below. T, we'll have to have you back another time to talk about your professional experience, because I definitely want to hear that side of the story. And for today, just thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability and your willingness to share your story as a way of, like, throwing that lifeline out, and just saying, hey, I found something that helps, like, maybe you want to try it too.
Yes, you summed it up very just perfectly. I tell people, right, I'm not the all-knowing Nurse T over here, right? But I do have a valuable opinion, based on lived experiences, based on my educational background, based on the research that I've done for this book. So I always encourage people to listen to things like this that we've created today, but to also do your research, find, scientific journal articles, chat with your local, prescribers in your area who are offering the medicine, and trust your intuition, right? If now is the time, if this is the thing you needed to listen to be like, heck yes, let's go for it, I'm all in, then great. But if now is not the time, if there's some hesitancy, right, your intuition is saying, no, okay, maybe later, maybe it'll resurface, or maybe ketamine just isn't psychedelic that is wanting to, like, that is in most alignment with messages you need to hear from the universe, right? Maybe there's a different route or a channel or a tool or a mechanism for this chapter in your life, and it's going to be different for each of us. So be compassionate to yourself in the process, stay curious, and keep going, poco a poco, little by little.
Poco a poco. All right, T, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna, for your time in creating this platform. I'm super, super, super grateful and excited to be launching it. Like, this is This is awesome. And I look forward to seeing you at our psychedelic conference in Denver in October. That's another thing, if anybody is wanting to come to that. I'll be speaking on the intersection of queer identities and ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, October 10th through 12th. So if you want to connect in person, I would be honored. And follow me on the links, buy my book, and thank you for listening.
Yay! All right, until next time.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Ketamine Connections. I hope you found our discussion insightful and empowering. Remember that understanding the subconscious mind and how to make the most of ketamine therapy can truly transform someone's healing journey. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to share it with your friends and family and anyone who might benefit from this information. So few people considering ketamine therapy are fully educated about its potential and the impact that it has on the subconscious mind. Your share could be the key element to their transformation. Don't forget to subscribe to Ketamine Connections so that you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I absolutely adore reading your reviews. So your feedback really helps me feel like this is an engaging exercise. Otherwise, I just feel like I'm talking into empty internet space. So your review really helps light me up and also helps me reach more audience. So I would appreciate one if you're willing. And please use the link below to submit any questions or topics that you would like covered. I cannot wait to hear from you and to co-create this journey together. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and embrace the possibilities that are available in this moment right here, right now. Thanks so much. See you next time on Ketamine Connections.